Okay, in the previous video, we have talked about how to use HTML to build this login page. It's a very simple page, but it basically shows the most of the information that you need to learn about for HTML. You can basically use those basic building blocks to start to build more very complex web page. But so far you only know how to fill the content of a web page, and you do not really know how to control the style of a web page. And here comes to CSS. CSS stands for Cascade Style Sheet, and it's a domain-specific language. It's a domain-specific language again, and we're going to use it. It's designed to specify the style of the elements in a HTML page. Okay, so we're going to start to create a HTML page, and still we're going to use a VS Code, and this is our VS Code. And we're going to make this this web page look nicer. So we have this web page here. Then we have VS Code that's extended a little bit. So the first thing we need to do is let's create a new file called style.css. Okay, we can do a lot of things with CSS. So let's try to play around CSS and see what we can do with it. So let's first try one thing. So I say I want to do something crazy. I want to change this color of this the OPS login text to green. What can I do with it? Okay, so in CSS, the first thing we need to do is to define a selector. So we need to select what element that we're designing a style for. For example, here we know this particular element, this element is in H1, it's in the H1 tag. We can simply specify, say H1, then use a curly bracket to define, okay, this style that is in this curly bracket is defined for H1 element. Okay, so H1, and we're going to say, we're going to define the color. How to define the color? I think it's just color, and we want to define as green, okay? So it's a good, so CSS, this is the format of CSS. It requires you to use a semicolon to terminate each style rule. Okay, then we have this CSS, we can refresh it. You can see, okay, it's now changing because we have not linked this HTML file, with this CSS style sheet. So we need to have a way to include it. Let's search for it. Include CSS in HTML. So let's see, we're going to find an example. Yeah, here, external CSS, because we have an external CSS file. You can also do this. You can define a style tag in the HTML file and directly write these style rules here, but we don't want to use it because we want to reuse our styles. We want to use our styles in, we want to keep consistent through our whole website, right? So we want to say, okay, H1 should look like something. H1 should be blue, should be green. Then we should make sure all the H1 in the whole website looks green. So we want it to be external, to be independent. To be an independent file so that all the pages can load that file. That's why we're defining it as an external CSS file. So we can use this particular syntax, link, rel, style sheet, and href for style CSS. This is the file name. You can copy this line and we can add it in the head section. It doesn't matter if you add it before title or after title. Let's put it before title. I feel just more comfortable about putting something that is not visible before things that is visible. So I can refresh it. Is it working? It seems it's still not working. So we need to debug it. Let's see what's going on. So see here, this is a debugging process for CSS. We need to understand why it is not working. So first thing you see here, this arrow. So don't ignore arrows. See what's the error here. Okay, it says, okay, style.css is not found, error aborted. If you look at network, we have sent a login request. After getting login, then the browser parsed into this file and it realized, okay, we need a CSS file. Then it will send this request to fetch the style.css file. And because that file does not exist, we have style, not styles.css. So that's the problem. Then the server returns 404 error, and that's why we cannot apply this arrow. We cannot apply it to this HTML page. We can remove that as. Let's refresh here again. You can see, okay, it's changed to green color. Okay. So this is a H1. Then say if in index.html, let's also include head, head, title, yes, and we also need to include this style.css. Let's Control C. Can work here. Yep, we paste it here. So let's say we have H1 here. Article 1. And we also have another article, the article 2. Let's use index.html. Remember, when we refer to index.html, we do not need to specify the index.html there. We can just directly use localhost 8000. And you can see HTML, article 1 and article 2. Okay. To remove this S again. So you can see that when we define a style CSS rule, it actually applies to multiple tags. As long as it can fit, say, it can select this H1 tag, it can also select this H1 tag because we're just defining what the style of H1 tag should look like. Then it will actually, it actually define this is, say, the style for all the H1 tags in this web page. Okay, so this is how CSS selector works. Then the next thing we want to do is say sometimes we have some we have H1, but we have some other type of H1. For example, say I would say this is important article. Okay. If this is an important article, we want to show it in color red. How we can do that? Let's say we have article 1, let's create several articles. Let's create several articles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we have 8 articles. They are all in using H1 title. So we have some important ones. So okay, this one is important. How we can define it? We can use this class. We can use this class to define it as, say, this is important article. Okay, then this article is marked as important article. So class is something that a user can define. So the HTML user can define this is, you can just name it as whatever you want. So later on, this class is related to a CSS file and it's related to our JavaScript script. We can select, say, all the important articles and that we want to have some action. We can use JavaScript to define those actions, but a user can define whatever class they want. This class, I say, add another class equals important article. So by the way, the naming convention for classes is in this way. If we have multiple files, multiple words, we want to use them as a lowercase words, always lowercase, and we use dash rather than underscore to separate those words. Those are just naming conventions for classes. Now, come to CSS, we want to say, okay, for H1 and for important article, we want to take some specific action. So what we can do is that we want to select classes. So to specify classes, we use this dot sign, dot important article. Now we're defining, say, okay, important article. We want to define, say, I want to make the color to be, say, red. Okay, we want the color to be red. So it's very good that VS Code can just directly show us this color preview here. So let's refresh this page and see, okay, we have article 2 and article 6 show as red. Okay, so here's the question. Here's the thing. Can H1 selector capture this one, this tag? The answer is yes, it can capture it. But why it applies color red as rather than color green? It's because a class selector has priority compared to a tag name selector. So if we have both selectors, we have two selectors, we have multiple selectors that apply to the same element, we always have a priority saying which one we want to apply first. So we want to, in this case, class has higher priority than these tag names. That's why it applies this important article rule rather than H1 rule. We can also check this information in the inspector, content inspector. Okay, right click on it, inspect. It will automatically come to this particular element. It's in this H1 article 2, right? We can see here, there are several different rules. So element.style, I'll talk about this element style later. Now we have one selector, important article that applies to this color red. Then we have H1. So see, both of them applies to this particular element, but you can see this one is crossed out, right? And also there's another level. There's another level called H1 and display block, this type of format rules. Probably talk about them later, but these are predefined by Chrome browser. I'm using Chrome browser right now, so those are predefined by Chrome browser. So for H1, we default to say this font size is 2em. 2em is basically twice the size of regular text. Okay, there's some margins, some font weight. It's bold, right? It's bold text and display as block. We'll talk about all these things later. Okay, so the only thing here is that element.style is not defined. So let's just say, what is element style? You can define a style right in the HTML directly. So we can define style that equals to, say, color. Let's say that's changed to blue violet. Okay, let's have a parenthesis. We can directly write CSS rules here. So it's kind of hard-coded. So this is not encouraged, but sometimes it's really useful. We just want to change the style of one thing. So why it's not encouraged? So we want to have this separation between content and the style. HTML is responsible for content, while CSS is responsible for style. Okay, so but that if we refresh it, you can see this one turns purple. We inspect it, we can see, okay, there's 3 different rules that applies to element.style, important article, and H1. Okay, and this one has higher priority than important style. Then important style has higher priority than H1. So since we're defining it as blue violet, then it will cross out red and green. And actually, there's another way to select things. So sometimes we just want to say, okay, this article, let's put this article 7 as an important article. But for some reason, we probably want to say, okay, for just this one element, we want to change the style. Of course, you can directly write a style property here, but there's another way we can do it, a slightly more elegant way. But still, be very careful about this. Okay, we can define the ID of this particular element. Now we can define it as article 7 title. Okay, article 7 title. So come back here. Then we define article 7 title. Then we have use pound sign to specify, okay, we are here requiring ID. And here is article 7 title. Let's change color to something like, let's think about some fancy color. Cyan. Okay, then refresh it. You can see, okay, color 7 turned to this blue color. Now we can inspect it. We can see, okay, we have article 7 title is this color, then article is important article is red, is crossed out. So we have 3 different selectors. This is selected by ID, this is selected by class, this is selected by tag. Then and also we have the fourth style, that is the style defined in the HTML tag directly. So this is defined directly in the tag. Okay, we have 4 different selectors, 4 different ways to define style, and they have priority in this way. Style first, element.style, or the inline style first, then ID style, then class style, and this tag name style. Okay, but ID should be very, so the higher priority, the stronger it is, and you should be careful about using it. Okay, style makes this style kind of fragile. Sometimes it's becoming very hard to manage because you have style here, you have a style there. You probably want to have a style that is centralized, that is defined in the style.css file. So be careful using this inline style, and also be very careful about defining IDs. As it suggests, it's identifier. It should be unique in your whole page. You have to guarantee some way that this ID should be unique. It doesn't really matter if we want to do something crazy. Let's say we want to say article 8 also has this ID. What is gonna happen? Sorry. What's gonna happen? It won't really complain any error. You will simply just turn both article 7 and article 8 to to this cyan color. But the problem is that when we use a JavaScript, we probably want to select a particular element. And if this is the case, we're selecting both of them. We have no way to specify which one will have a particular behavior. Okay. So be very careful about ID. ID should be unique. You should not abuse ID. And class is something generally say, you can freely use it for styling. You can just be careful with this, but it's much better than using ID. And using tag name is generally a good thing. As long you should always select, say, as general as possible. But sometimes you just cannot do it because there may be, say, you have a div. There are hundreds, thousands of divs in the whole web page. You just cannot specify which one it is. So be smart of combining these IDs, classes, and different things. And also things we talk about this. There's a priority, right? There's a priority between this using ID, using classes, and using tags. But we can always override this priority by adding a exclamation mark and important. We say this is important. This should override all other rules. Okay. What will happen is that this is important, then it will override all other rules. also be very careful about using it, but sometimes this is useful. Okay. Also, this is important. If we have too important, what's gonna happen? I think it will come back to the same rule. So important. This is important. This is also important. So so since this one has our priority, then this one will be used. Okay. So this is important. Then some basic rules about articles, about setting colors. There are many different things about CSS. You can define the size of font, if you want to different the style, if you want the bold or thinner or lighter version, or Italian style, right? Then you can say cross out, you can underscore it, you can have many different things that you can play with the text. But basically, just think as if you are using Microsoft Word, you want to process some text, then you want to do, say, you want to increase the font of a particular part of text. Then you search CSS, say, you search CSS, say font size, right? You see, okay, the font size, you just look at examples, you can use how many pixels are there, large, 150%, and you can see there are different options you can select, right? So the basic rule is whenever you want to find something, search for it. You don't need to remember everything. There's no way you can remember everything. And I'm not going to take time to introduce all of them. So I'm going to talk about something even more important, that is the display property. So right now we have an article, but here we want to say we want to have slightly change it. So we want to have a way, say we want to show this page in this particular way. So we have a title called all articles. Okay, all articles. Now we want to show this article. This article is as a block. This article is a block. And there are some gap between these two blocks. Okay, there's another block. Okay, blocks. Now we show the title and show some text. Some title, some text. Some title, some text. Okay, we want to show it in this way. How can we do it?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, my Google Home doesn't understand me. Okay, so let's define it. So H1, all articles H1. Then what we're going to do next is to say, okay, so since we're talking about we're going to have a block, one block is one article. What we're going to have is, say, div. We're going to use div. Then div, we're going to define a class, right? We're going to have multiple of them. Then we're going to use class to define the structure, the style. So we define, say, this is an article. I'm going to temporarily remove all of them. Okay, this is an article. In article, we have, say, title. Then title is, I actually don't want to use H1, but for something that I want to show you later, let's use this H1. Okay, this article title is, this is article 1. Then P, this is the content of article 1. Okay, let's copy paste this region for a few times. Okay. Article, this is article. Okay, I'm not going to change it. So let's refresh and see what's going on. And this is article, this is article 1, this is the content of article. So remember, we talk about we want to have some border. We want to have a light border around this article. So let's do it. So how we can do it is that we want to select it, right? We want to select the dot because it's a class. Now we want to select article. So here, what we want to go is to have a border, right? So let's search for CSS border. CSS borders. You can do a lot with borders, right? So basically, so you need want to select kind of shopping around. Say you have so many options, and let's say which one we want to select. Let's say other good examples. So border shorthand. Yeah. So I personally typically use borders in this way. Okay, I'm going to use write 3 borders. So we have border width, border color, and the border size. Yeah, but I just simply want to create a border, so you can use in this way to define the border. Border. You say we want to have 1 pixel. Just want a very thin border around each article. I want it to be solid. I don't want to make fancy like the dotted dashed border. And we want to have a light color. Okay, now we want to have a light gray. Let's name it as E. So I'm not going to introduce this hex representation of color. Okay, there are plenty of tutorial that you can find to see why this particular color E maps to this almost white color. Okay, can we select it? Yeah, you can. Let's try to see. You can see on the top we have this color. So each color is represented with 3 numbers. This is R, G, and B, right? So this how bright R is, how bright the red part is. Okay, this is how bright the green light is, how bright the blue light is. Let's see, the white color is FFFFF. FF is hex representation for 255. So it's 255, 255, 255, and black is all 0. Pure white is FF0000. Let's change another color, then this is, say, you can always use 3 numbers to represent a color. So here we almost want, so remember all F is white. We want a slightly darker color. Let's say all E. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let's come back here and let's refresh it. Is there a border, or is I'm not showing? I'm not seeing it. So it's time to define it. Time to see what's going on. Okay, okay. This is getting interesting. We're selecting this one. And you see, okay, this maps to this one. There's the article. You see the border here. But if for some reason it's crossed out, it says invalid property value. Okay, it's probably we're not implementing the wrong way, defining it in the right way. It's because we added this comma here, and we should not. So this border, we come back here, refresh it. You can see, okay, this border is here, right? Very light border, but it's here. Let's make it darker. On night and see what this color looks like. Okay, it's much darker and it looks good. So this is this border, and this sharp border, I really don't like this sharp border. It's like that's kind of the reason why I don't like the Windows system. Everything is sharp. It's like hitting a wall. I like rounded color borders, corners. Let's see, CSS definitely support rounded corners. So let's search for CSS rounded corners. And W360 school is always our first selection. Okay. Say border radius, right? Border radius. Let's just need a small, say 3 pixel. Let's see what's going on. A very small round corner. You see, it's good. Probably too small, but not bad. Yep, 5 is, let's use 4. You see this corner. It's a rounded corner, which looks good. Okay. Then next thing, we want to have some gaps between these articles. They're right next to each other, which looks very busy. So we want to have some gaps. How we can do that? So that relates to the box model of CSS and HTML rendering. See here, it actually have a very good illustration about this box model. For this article, it's a box by itself. You see, here's the border. It says on the left side is 1, top side is 1, 1, 1, 1, right? When you say say these four numbers, you always start from the top and go clockwise. You say 1, 1, 1, 1, okay? If it happens to be the same number, but if it's different number, you start with the top, then everyone familiar with CSS would understand, okay, you are talking about in this order. So this is a border. Inside border, there's a padding, and this is the content inside this box. And outside the border, there's a margin, and this is the gap that we do not allow any content to get into this margin outside this box. To say, I was saying that we want to create some margin, right? We want to create some gap between these articles. That means we want to create some margins. So they say, and I kind of also don't want to have this box to be say there's some. I want to have some larger gap between this browser border and my article border. I think this is too small. And also, actually, there's a very annoying thing that Chrome tries to be smart. So CSS, Chrome thinks, okay, is you probably don't want a border here. You want a margin here. So it automatically creates a margin for you in this HTML. And you actually don't want this to happen, right? You want to have whole control of your web page. So what you can do here is a common practice is to have a reset.css to remove the style of the browser. And a very annoying thing also here is that I'm here using Chrome. If I'm using Safari, Safari may not add this border for me, or it may add a larger border for me. So it's not consistent through browser to browser. This is something that can be really defined by the browser. So we want to say, okay, if a user want to use our website, they should have the same, should look the same if you use one browser and the same using another browser. So we want to remove this effect. So a typical solution is to find a reset.css. There are different ways, different versions of reset CSS. I just find this one, then let's probably just use this one. Okay, copy the file. It's very short, but here we want to have a reset.css. Sorry, I'm just directly using his style. You can see for it defines many tags and defines margin equals 0, padding equals 0, font size is 100%. Then you can actually use this way to define, say, multiple elements. Okay, you can define multiple elements. So all these elements should follow this style. Okay, so come here. We want to include reset.css before our style.css. Reset.css, we also want this rule to be in the index.html file. So let's refresh it and see if it's taking effect. Okay, it's changing a lot, right? We see it's getting a plain text. So this reset.css removes the styling that is added by the browser. So we can start to define our own style. We want to, here we can see there's no gap between the border of the browser and my article. So we can define our own borders. Style.css, say article, and we want to create this border. So we want to create this border, this gap this gap is outside the border. Then we need to use margin to define these gaps. So just a reminder, border is here, margin is outside, padding is inside. Okay, margin, we need to define, say, remember that from the top, clockwise. Now we need to define, say, 5 pixel, sorry, 4 pixel, 10 pixel. It's the right side. Bottom, let's say 4 pixel. Let's see if it's enough. So with CSS, there typically just not a lot of calculation. Just define a style, look at it, see if it's visually appealing. Refresh it, let's see if it's working. It's not working, right? Let's say we can still debug it by inspect it. It's depth, margin, is it applying? It's not applying. Okay, I think it's the same error. I don't want these commas. Refresh it and see. Okay, it's showing in this way. This is very good. Probably 4 pixels is not enough. Let's use 10 pixel. 10 pixel, and on left, let's say 20 pixel, and right side 20 pixel. Okay, let's refresh it. It's not as crowded, not as busy as before, and it looks good to me. Okay, then the next thing is that I don't want this text to be right on the border of this article box. We want to create some gap between the border and the text. Then we want to use some padding. Let's say padding, let's make 5 pixel. Sorry, no comma. 5 pixel, 5 pixel, and 5 pixel. Come back here, let's refresh it. You can see, okay, we create some gap, probably not enough. Let's come back to use 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. Okay, let's refresh. Now it looks good. Then also we want to say this H1, we want to have font size equals to, say, 200%, for example, or 2em. I personally do not prefer to use percent. 2em is basically the same as 200%, but it's more CSS way. Okay, so here we have another problem. Okay, if suppose we think, okay, this article, this looks good, but we say we want to have another style for articles title. But for articles title, we definitely also want to use H1. If we still want to use H1, how we can define another style? An easy way, a simple way, is to define class, say article title. Article title. But here, then we can here define, say, dot article title. Let's make it smaller. Font size equals to 1.4 em. Let's refresh it. Yeah, it's working. But the annoying thing is we have to define this class for all the articles. This is annoying. So we want to have some automatic way. Let's say if this H1, close this one. If this H1 is in an article, we can automatically apply another style. So that involves more complex selectors. So this is nested selectors. So we can search for CSS selectors. I can see how we can define these selectors. So we can combine different elements to selectors. So say if you want to select all the elements with both name1 and name2 within the class attribute. So you can, one class have multiple classes, okay? You can have article title, and then you can also have an article. It's not a very good example, but this is legal for HTML and CSS. Okay, then here we want to say select all element with name2 that is a descendant of an element of L1. Okay, descendant means this H1 is a descendant of body. It doesn't have to be the right next layer. It just needs to be a something within another tag. Okay, but what we want to look at here is this one. Select all P where the parent is a dev element. Okay, this is an example. So we want to use this greater than sign to define, say, we want to select the H1 whose parent is an article. Okay, so we want to define the H1 right in the article, but not many layers in this article tag, but just one layer down in this article. So we can define this format with article greater than sign. Then what's that? H1. Yeah. So come back to the web page, can refresh it. You can see if I hover on this H1, if I click on this one, you can see this one is applied. It's H1 inside article. Then if I inspect this one, you can see this only applies to H1. Okay, so this is, you can create combinations for selectors to make your selection. So you say, okay, we're defining article and we're defining element inside an article. You can make combinations and make very different, say, different styles for different things, even if they all have the H1, they all use the H1 tag. This one is just, this H1 is just specified, specific for H1 inside article. Okay, so next thing, we want to do something even more crazy. Okay, right now we have this article, I'm happy with it, and this article layout, I'm happy with it. But sometimes you may see in some website you have this style. So we want to have this, let's say this, at the top we have this article title, but we want to have this article shows as block and shows next to each other. Okay, not a round one, but a square one. Okay, so how can we do it? Remember, we have this rule that says a block, a div should show in a block way. So this is a block, right? This div is a block, and we say a div should occupy one line by itself. But this is changeable. This is something that we can modify with CSS. So the rule here is something called display. Display. There are several different options for display. CSS display. Display. You can see what are the properties. There are many properties. The basic things are inline. We can show inline later. Block and inline block. So there are some other things that has been recently introduced, like flags, grid, inline flags, and table related table too. So you do not have to have a table style within a table. But those are something new or something advanced. I'm not going to introduce in this video. I'm only going to compare the difference between inline and block and inline block. So previously, let's remove this line, then refresh it, then let's see, okay, it's not changing. Then you can see, okay, this is a div, right? This div is the first article. You can see that user agent style string, this is defined by Chrome browser, and even the reset.css won't want to rewrite it, because this is by default div should display in a block style. In a block style, it means it's a block and it will take some space. It will take a whole row, and the next block should go to the next row. But we can change it. We can change it to display. Let's try inline. Inline is the wrong answer, but let's try inline. What happens? You can see it messed up. Why it messed up? Let's see. Here, inline. If it's inline, then it doesn't really occupy any size, and the border and the margin doesn't really know how to show it. Okay. it won't occupy space. So here, what we need is inline block. So inline is basically something you're going to use if, say, you have a paragraph, but for a few words you want to like make it bold, then those things are inline. So inline block, let's see, let's refresh it. I think it automatically works. I'm not really expecting it works as this way, but this is the way that if I change to inline block, it's still a block. Then it will try to be as small as possible depending on the content of it, right? But it still has block. Then this block has a particular size, that's 191 pixel by 38 pixel. And this one should have the same size because it has the same content. Say if I'm trying to add more content, what's gonna happen? Trying to add more text, then you can see, okay, this one will increase the size as large as possible. And this is something we do not want to see. We want to have, say, each article should occupy a certain, it should have a certain width, and it shouldn't change according to its content, right? So, so we need to define the width of this article, okay? So of this box. But you can see this box has a width and height, and it will probably apply this border. If we use inline, we cannot see this border. This border is a very, very teeny border. So we need to define the size of this box. So we need to define width equals to, I do not know a good number, but let's say 200 pixel, height 300 pixel, for example, and let's refresh it. Okay, there's something weird that's happening. It doesn't show up at the same row. We can probably debug it, but as you can see, at least no matter what, this box is not growing as wide as possible. It's constrained to this width, and the text will wrap. Okay, let's try to see if we can debug this problem that why there's a drop on this second, third article. The article, so this one has 200 and 300 content. That's good. Then this article should also have the same amount of content, right? That's also good. So why there's a drop? Yeah, this is a very common thing for CSS. Sometimes you just it's really difficult for you to specify what's going on there. So what I can do is try to put all the boxes within one div. Sorry, within one div, and see if we can still see this behavior or not. Yeah, we can still see this behavior. I don't know why it happens. I can probably debug it offline, but here the basic thing is, you know, this basic information about different display styles, and you know how to define styles for CSS. That's the goal of this video. Okay, I think that concludes the CSS part. And in the next part, we're going to start to introduce JavaScript. And in the next video, we're going to use JavaScript to say to validate, say in our login page. So we want to type some emails, password, and submit. But before we submit, we need to check, okay, this email is a valid email. It should not be some other text than that without that @ sign. And the password, if we say, okay, we need to be at least 8 characters, then how we can verify it. So this type of, we're going to use JavaScript to control this logic in the next video.